In this video, I will be taking a retrospective look back at Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. Released in 1984, Star Trek III: The Search for Spock was directed by Leonard Nimoy. Set mere days after the events of Star Trek II, the plot involves Admiral Kirk and the crew of the Starship Enterprise returning to Earth after their battle with Khan and the death of their comrade Spock. When Kirk discovers that Spock's Katra, his living spirit, exists in the mind of Dr. McCoy, he and the crew steal the Enterprise to return Spock's body to Vulcan. Meanwhile, the Klingons find out about the existence of the Genesis device and attempt to steal its secrets. After the huge critical and commercial success of Star Trek II, Paramount Pictures greenlit a follow-up film almost immediately. Leonard Nimoy, who had played Spock, had for a while grown disenchanted with playing the character, but after seeing how well Star Trek II turned out, became excited at the prospect of playing the character again. Therefore, when producer Harv Bennett sat down to write the script, it was with the intention of resurrecting Spock. He started from the ending with one of the final lines of dialogue.
Your name is Jim. Yes.
And worked his way back from there. While the studio were eager for Nimoy to return and play Spock, they took some convincing that he could direct the film. The studio head Michael Eisner was convinced Nimoy actually hated Star Trek and had demanded that Spock be killed off in Star Trek II. After Nimoy convinced Eisner this wasn't the case, he got the job of directing Star Trek III. Like he did with the previous film, Harv Bennett did his homework and delved deep into the television series history and lore for story material for the movie. The Klingons were the most famous antagonists in the original series, and Bennett brought them back here. The Klingons were seen briefly at the beginning of Star Trek the Motion Picture, and their alien appearance is a big change from the original series, which was, let's face it, just a slapped-on paint job. Star Trek III is really the point where their appearance and warlike manner is established, and has pretty much stayed the same since, well, until Star Trek Discovery. No. Don't get me started on modern Star Trek. Bennett also drew on the Vulcan lore established in the original series episodes Amok Time and Journey to Babel, in its depiction of the planet Vulcan and Spock's father Saavik, played again here by Mark Leonard. The concept of the Vulcan spirit, or Katra, as a basis for bringing Spock back to life was established in this movie, and was further elaborated on in later Star Trek adventures, such as the Vulcan trilogy in Season 4 of Star Trek Enterprise. If Wrath of Khan was about aging and new beginnings, the themes of the search for Spock is summed up by Kirk himself in one key scene.
I'm talking about loyalty and sacrifice.
Kirk risks his life and career to get his friend back. There's a wonderful moment as he attempts to get permission from the Starfleet commander to use the Enterprise to travel to Genesis and return Spock's body to Vulcan, but is denied.
Jen, your life and your career stand for rationality, not for intellectual chaos. Keep up this emotional behavior and you'll lose everything.
Right at this moment, you can tell Kirk has made his mind up that he's going to do what he has to, regardless of the consequences, but acts to Commander Morrow like he's given up.
I hear you. I had to try. Of course.
It's a great bit of acting from William Shatner here, and proves that when he's directed well, he can give a great performance. No, I'm not normally a fan of characters being killed off in science fiction and fantasy, and then being brought back. It's a really tired trope, and death loses its threat when it's overused. Just look at Loki in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've lost count how many times that Egypt has died and come back to life. What I really like about Spock's resurrection in Star Trek III, though, is that it ties into the Genesis device and Vulcan mysticism. It couldn't have happened without one or the other. Also, Kirk and his crew do get Spock back, but it comes at a very high price, which confirms the old saying, you don't get something for nothing. This is the first movie in the series to really emphasise the family dynamic of the Enterprise crew. While Kirk, Spock and McCoy were always the main stars of the TV series and movies, the supporting cast of Scotty, Sulu, Uhura and Chekhov really get their chance to shine in this film, and all have great character moments, thanks to more expanded roles. Kirk and his crew defy Starfleet orders and steal the Enterprise in order to travel to the Genesis planet and bring Spock home. There's one particular scene where Kirk is hesitant to ask his crew for their help, and it's one of the most heartwarming scenes of the entire franchise.
I can't ask you to go any further. Dr. McCoy and I have to do this. The rest of you do not.
Admiral, We're losing precious time.
What course, please, Admiral? Mr. Scott?
I'd be grateful, Admiral, if you'd give the word.
By helping Kirk and McCoy, the crew know that they are effectively ending their careers, but don't care, as loyalty to their captain and friends means everything. Christopher Lloyd plays the Klingon Commander Krug, and is the main villain of the movie. It's hard to believe now, but casting Lloyd as an intimidating Klingon was seen as cast against type for the actor, as he was then currently best known for playing Reverend Jim in the comedy series Taxi. To put this in perspective, the modern day equivalent would be like casting Will Ferrell or Ben Stiller as Klingons. However, Nimoy was impressed by Lloyd's performance in movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and cast him as Krug. Lloyd is probably best known now for playing the wacky Dr. Brown in the Back to the Future movies, but is actually really intimidating as a Klingon. While he's no Khan, he's an extremely ruthless and intelligent adversary to Kirk and his crew. He also brings a dark sense of humour to some of the more violent scenes.
Kom op på! Skjut ner! Verstå! Kach!
The Klingon Bird of Prey ship is one of the best all-time spacecraft designed for the Star Trek franchise. In the original series episode, The Enterprise Incident, it was explained that the Romulan Empire had a trade agreement with the Klingons, and were seen using a Klingon ship design. In reality, this was actually done to explain the series using that particular ship model to save money. So in Star Trek 3, the Klingons use a Romulan-designed bird of prey, equipped with a cloaking device, first seen in the episode Balance of Terror, thereby reciprocating the trade agreement. This movie shows us for the first time one of the Federation star bases, mentioned but not seen in the original series, and it's another fantastic design that was carried forward into future movies and TV episodes of the franchise. The stealing of the Enterprise from Spacedock is one of the highlights of the film. While the starships involved in the sequence move relatively slowly, James Horner's fantastic score makes it one of the most exciting scenes of the movie. This is also where we first get to see the Starship Excelsior, which will return in Star Trek VI under the command of Captain Sulu. Robin Curtis plays Lieutenant Saavik, replacing Kirstie Alley, who declined to return. I think Curtis is actually much more convincing than Alley in this role, and more Vulcan-like as she should be. She spends most of her screen time with Merritt Butrick, who returns here in the role of David, Kirk's son. One of the most talked about scenes in the movie is between Saavik and the young resurrected Spock, who is going through the blood fever, established in the original series episode Amok Time. In that episode, it was established that Vulcans go through a mating ritual every 7 years. And in this movie, it's left ambiguous as to what happened off screen after Saavik calms the young Spock down. In fact, in an early draft of the script for Star Trek IV, she stays on Vulcan when it's revealed that she's carrying Spock's child. The most controversial aspect of the film for longtime fans was the destruction of the Starship Enterprise. After being defeated by the Klingons in orbit over Genesis, Kirk orders the ship to auto-destruct. This whole sequence was yet another example of Harve Bennett referencing the TV series, as the destruct code sequence plays out exactly as it's portrayed in the third season episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
Destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A.
Computer. Destruct sequence 1. Code 1. 1A.
Begin 30-second countdown. Code 000. Destruct 0.
Code 000. Destruct 0.
Despite extra security precautions by the crew to prevent the ship's destruction being leaked to the public, word got out and fans started a letter-writing campaign to prevent this from happening. Remember kids, this was way before the internet existed. Despite all the secrecy, Harve Bennett said it was all for nothing, as the ship's destruction is given away in the trailer.
Join us on this, the final voyage of the Starship Enterprise. Star Trek III, The Search for Spock.
And they say modern day trailers give away too much. The ship's destruction is actually one of the best scenes in the film, as Kirk and his crew watch their ship go down in flames. It really hammers home the movie's theme of sacrifice. What's unique about Star Trek III amongst other science fiction blockbusters is that it doesn't have an all-action climax. After Kirk defeats crew during a big fist fight on the planet's surface, the last 20 minutes is very low-key, as the crew deliver Spock back to Vulcan and simply wait to see if the Vulcan High Priestess can return Spock's Katra to his regenerated adult body. This was in hindsight a very risky way of ending the film. Can you imagine a J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie ending like this? The filmmakers were correct in ending the film this way though, as we're so emotionally invested at this point that it isn't boring in the slightest. Actually, I wish more modern day blockbusters had endings like this. Not everything has to explode at the end of the movie. By the time the film ends at Spock, almost back to his old self and reunited with Kirk and his crew, it's one of the most satisfying scenes of the entire franchise. Overall, Star Trek III doesn't reach the heights of The Wrath of Khan, but it's a highly enjoyable space adventure. It brought back Spock in a meaningful and satisfying way, and features some of the most visually stunning and emotional moments of the series. The movie leaves several plot threads hanging that would need to be resolved in the final part of what is now referred to as the Genesis Trilogy. And that's what we'll take a look at next week in my retrospective of Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, click the bell for notifications, and let me know in the comments what's your favourite scene in Star Trek 3. I hope you all look after yourselves, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye for now.